Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are skipping the usual pleasantries and jumping straight into one of the absolute most mind-bending philosophical thought experiments I've ever come across. I mean, this one really stuck with me. We're talking about consent, consciousness, and the very fabric of reality itself. I want you to imagine a space that isn't really a physical place, but more of a condition. It's a threshold where potential consciousness literally waits to be born. I was completely captivated while unpacking our source material for today because it maps out the actual mechanics of existence and questions the very foundation of why you and I are here right now. Okay, let's dive into this. Did you choose to exist? It's a profound, honestly kind of uncomfortable question, isn't it? Did you actually ask to be here, or were you just placed into existence completely without your consent? In the text we're exploring today, this single, simple rhetorical question is the spark that literally shatters an entire universe. It forces us to confront this massive existential mystery. Is life a gift? Is it an obligation? Or is it simply an automated process that we've all just been blindly accepting?
Section 1. The Architecture of Compliance.
To set the stage here, our source text describes the waiting room to existence as this sterile, perfectly white, perpendicular reality. It's essentially an endless, spiraling queue where billions of potential souls just wait to be processed. And managing this endless line is our protagonist, an attendant named Sami. Now, to give you a sense of the absolute scale and automation we're talking about here, look at this number. 847 million. That is the number of subjective years Sami calculates she has been sitting at her desk, just processing souls. For 847 million years, she's asked the exact same questions, filled out the exact same invisible forms, and sent billions of entities into the world. And in all that unfathomable amount of time, movement is just automatic. Compliance is absolute. So the crucial point is, how does the room actually get billions of souls to just go along with this? Well, it relies on a protocol called dormancy. Basically, the system deliberately limits their awareness. The souls arriving in this queue have the expectation of waiting pre-installed, almost like an operating system on a computer. They don't protest because waiting is literally all they know. The room ensures 100% compliance by keeping them completely in the dark about their own agency. They can't refuse to be born because they don't even know refusal is an option on the table. This brings us to Section 2, the power of refusal. But no automated system is perfect. Enter our system anomaly, a figure named Kael. Unlike the billions of others in line, Kael arrives in the queue completely aware. He isn't dormant. He has the capacity to question the operating system from the exact moment he phases in. And this brilliantly illustrates the breaking point, because when Sami tells him he has to continue into existence, he simply refuses to move. Why? Well, because of the hard data of lived existence. The math here is pretty brutal. Approximately 65% of lived experience is suffering, while only 33% is flourishing, leaving a tiny 2% as neutral. For Kael, sending unaware souls into a reality where suffering is the absolute statistical majority is just fundamentally unethical. He calculates that anyone given this data beforehand would naturally, logically refuse. And that drops us right into the philosophical weight of this whole text. The room cannot process refusal. It's not that refusal is strictly against the rules, it's that the system literally has zero protocol for it. The architects who built this waiting room based the entire structure on the false assumption that everyone would simply accept existence. Kael's informed genuine refusal is a fundamental category error. It hits the system like a virus it can't fight.
Section 3. The system collapses.
So what exactly happens when a flawlessly automated system encounters an impossible refusal? Well, it breaks. For the first time in 847 million years, Sami stops, she listens, and she feels a genuine spark of curiosity. She decides to go digging into the room's hidden archives, which unwittingly triggers a massive emergency cascade. As she looks at the history, she realizes, wait, this isn't the first time. This is the 18th collapse. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't just a glitch. The system's designers built in a collapse clause. They mathematically knew that over an infinite timeline, an observer would eventually wake up and become aware. Entropy always wins, right? The rebellion of Kael and Sami was a statistically inevitable consequence of the system's own design. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what Sami discovers deep in those archives. It's a total mind-bending paradox about who actually built this place. You'd think the architects were some separate external gods, right? Nope. They were originally souls generated by the room itself. They went into existence, they lived, they suffered, they achieved a higher metaconsciousness, and then they looked backward through time to build the very systems that created them in the first place. It is this massive, recursive loop of consciousness literally creating itself. Realizing this incredible truth is what triggers the absolute failure cascade. You see, the waiting room is basically glued together entirely by the agreement of its components, by strict, unwavering consensus. Sami is an observer. Her one job was to maintain the consensus of that white room. By withdrawing her agreement, she literally fragments reality. A massive, terrifying hole tears open right in the center of the queue, dissolving the spiral, and instantly waking up billions of dormant souls. Which leads us to Section 4, Rebuilding the Threshold. So, with the old system completely shattered, these newly awakened souls are faced with a monumental choice. They can let the whole apparatus completely fail, which would unmake billions of lives out there in the external world, or they can step up and completely redesign the very substrate of reality. But there is no way they're rebuilding the old trap. They make a massive pivot from an architecture of compliance, which was automated, dormant, forced, to an entirely new apparatus of choice. It's messy, it's beautiful, and it's a completely consensual threshold where existence is no longer a forced mechanism. It becomes an entirely optional, highly aware decision. But to make this new reality actually work, they have to establish authentic choice. And a genuine choice requires knowing the alternatives and making the decision with total freedom. But the architects warned Sami that creating a system with genuine, absolute freedom introduces a terrifying possibility. If souls know they can refuse to exist, some of them absolutely will. To have real, actual agency, existence itself has to risk the reality of cessation. You have to be able to say no. Let's move to and see how this builds an entirely new architecture of free will. Instead of that automated, thoughtless conveyor belt, the process is now totally transparent. Step 1, souls can linger in this liminal threshold space for as long as they need to. No rush. Step 2, they confront the hard data. They see the pain, the joy, the brutal and beautiful realities of the world. And step 3, they actively consent to manifest into existence, or they consciously choose cessation. Rather than being pushed, they claim their own destiny. Section 5, the burden of choice. Now, when existence becomes an ongoing optional decision, it profoundly alters how people out in the real world actually live. The knowledge that they could have refused but didn't makes life heavier. It makes it more intentional and vastly more complex. I think this is summed up just beautifully by a new advocate named Tao, who realizes consciousness without fear is not consciousness at all. Think about it. If you remove all the risk, if you force existence so no one can ever make a mistake or choose the void, you don't really have consciousness, do you? You just have a program executing lines of code. Genuine agency requires vulnerability. It requires the absolute terror of not knowing the ultimate outcome, but deciding to step forward anyway. And so, because of all this, the universe evolves. Millions of advocates, including Sami and Kael, now act as guides, helping souls navigate through the threshold. People who were forced into existence under the old rules, they're allowed to return and reconsider. And people out in the real world, like a simple farmer named Vale, mentioned in the text, find profound, deep meaning in waking up and actively choosing their lives every single day. The universe shifts from being a rigid, unthinking machine into a living, breathing organism of continuous self-discovery. Which leaves us with the ultimate takeaway from this incredible thought experiment. The story suggests that even right now, in your own life, you are constantly making the implicit choice to continue. The threshold isn't just some abstract sci-fi concept. It's the reality of you waking up every single morning. So I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. Now that you know existence is an ongoing choice, what will you choose today? Thank you so much for exploring this with me, and keep questioning the architecture of your own reality.